Welcome to another edition of The Walking Dead.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of EPL on Pub.
Class is in session, hitting the books on Pub Sports.
This is another exciting edition of the main event on Talking Ant.
Welcome to the College Football Pub Hub, Pub Sports Radio, Saturday, November 12th. Ian Cameron and Conor Mac. We are here to break down the Saturday college football card. We have two of our crew members down for the count today, unfortunately. Big Ragoo is sick, under the weather, feeling awful, is actually on antibiotics now, so he's going to need a few days to recover. So shout out to you, Big Ragoo, Doc. We hope you're feeling better soon. And, of course, as you all know, DJ Big Boss has been suffering for a few weeks now and has been in the hospital earlier this week getting treatment for what he's going through. So we're all having some we're playing through pain, if you will, here with our college football Pub Hub crew. So we miss you guys. We hope you're going to get better soon. I know you'll get better soon. We miss you, and we can't wait to have you back here as soon as possible on the college football Pub Hub. Ain't that right, my friend?
Yeah, as I said the other day, it's just not the same without Boss here, and now Doc's not feeling good as well. But I think hopefully by the next couple of weeks, by the end of this year, we will be back. And I always say the band will be back together. Hopefully next week, but we will see. At least Ragoo should be back. But I'm hoping Boss. He seems like he's in a lot better spirits. He's messaged me a couple times, so hopefully he's on the up and up.
Exactly. We got another month of shows. Like, we're going to be here every Saturday the rest of the regular season. We're going to have conference championship Saturday in December, and then we're going to do, I think, a couple of bowl game shows to wrap up our season here of college football Pub Hub on Saturdays in December. So still plenty of shows left. That is no question about that. Speaking of plenty of shows, as always, plenty of games here on a Saturday in college football. I mean, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. There's only 3 weeks of regular season college football left, and then it's conference championship Saturday. So it is really unbelievable how quickly this season has gone. Let's start as we always do. The noon kickoffs, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific games, starting with Liberty and UConn. We got Liberty 13.5-point road favorites, 45 the total in this game. You got to wonder where Liberty's head's at for this game, Connor. You're going in a non-conference game this late in the season against UConn, and you're coming off, one of the biggest wins you've had of the season against Arkansas last week. And give credit to that Liberty defense. They played very well for a lot of that game, and their quarterback did enough to put the points on the board and lead that Liberty team to a big victory last week over Arkansas. Can they keep it going? It's one thing to take points with Liberty, and I really liked Liberty in that spot last week, but it's another thing to lay almost 2 touchdowns with them on the road, because Jonathan Bennett is still a work in progress for them at the quarterback spot. Yes, he's getting a little bit better. And the one thing I'll say about UConn, though, they're playing for bowl eligibility today. They just need one more win, and they will be eligible for a bowl game, which is quite the impressive accomplishment in year one for Jim Mora Jr., for a team universally thought to be pathetic coming into the year. I actually like UConn here as a home underdog. I don't love this spot for Liberty at all. UConn has a lot to play for. UConn's been a point spread darling in this price range as underdogs for the most part in recent weeks. So I like UConn here getting this number. What do you think here, Connor?
Shout out to the chat, as always, here. Bright and early Saturday morning, at least for me. It is Fat Wally, my guy, good to see you. Shouting out Boston Ragoo, Star Child, Andrew Carr, my guy Jake Kaiser, Mike Campbell, Mike Murphy, Rocco, good to see you. Raymond up in here, Joey, MDR, good to see you. Justin, what up? Shout out to everyone up in the chat. Sammy Colmer, our guy in here, Lucas Ryan, all the regulars. If I didn't hit you up, I'll try to hit you up. Caleb, Nunya, there we go. Mad love to everyone here. I agree with you here a little bit. There's not a lot of 14s though out there anymore. Ian, it'll be tough for them to score. This Liberty defense has been very good, but so is UConn. And I love this under here. Still even at 45.5, I think it's okay. I don't know how UConn really scores much here. So I think the game's tight. You mentioned flat spot a little bit for Liberty after that big win against Arkansas. So I lean the points with UConn, but I like the under even better.
All right, leaning to the points with the UConn, but liking the under in this game even more than that for Conor Mac. Virginia Tech, Duke, I ain't liking anything in this game. Duke, 9.5, 10-point home favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. I'd take Duke if I had to, but you're not getting a bargain anymore with Duke. I mean, they've obviously had a season that's been a lot better than people thought going into it. I'm not looking to take Virginia Tech, though, at all. I guess by default, I'd lean to Duke if I had to take something in this game. I'm just not comfortable laying this many points with them. They are 6-3. They clinched bowl eligibility with their win against Boston College, but that's another reason why I'm a little bit leery of laying this many points. Boston College has had no offense for pretty much the entire season. They've had quarterback injuries. The offensive line's been bad. And they gave up 31 points. And I saw that backup quarterback of theirs, Moorhead. He was basically going up and down the field against Duke last week. That's concerning. I mean, if you're going to lay this kind of points with a defense that was that leaky against a bad offense, because, yeah, they're facing another bad offense here, Virginia Tech. And you know how I feel about Grant Wells, but, you know, BC was pretty bad, and they still scored 31. So I'm off this game entirely. I mean, Virginia Tech, I just can't back them. They've been absolutely terrible. They have covered 2 of their last 3. The one thing I'll say is they've been in the games the last 3 weeks. I mean, we saw them lose by 6, lose by 1, lose by 1 to Miami, NC State, and Georgia Tech. So they haven't been a lose by margin team the last 3 weeks. So maybe they hang inside this number, but I don't like them enough to bet if it's a pass. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, it's a pass for me as well. Back Duke all year. Seems like they're catching points. Now laying this number. And yeah, they got backdoored. I was worried about that last week. The team total was a good play, and they gave up to a team that couldn't score at all, like you mentioned, in Boston College. Right now, 10 points ain't enough for me to back Vatek and Grant Wells. The defense has played better, but them on the road, they're not at home here. 2-7. Duke wins, but, you know, that's on you if you want to lay the number.
Which I don't. I've made a lot of
I'm
money
not
with Duke this year, but not this week.
Power to you if you want it.
Number. Yeah, exactly. All right, we got Notre Dame and Navy here in Baltimore, home of the Ravens, M&T Stadium. We've got Notre Dame, 17-point road favorites, 40 the total in this game. You might as well say it's a home game for Navy because they play in Annapolis, Maryland. Obviously, that's very close to Baltimore. So it's kind of like supposed to be a Navy home game, but you know there'll be a lot of Notre Dame fans. It's Notre Dame. So you know the Fighting Irish will have their faithful there, I'm sure, in attendance. That being said, do you know that Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame 0-4 ATS this year is double-digit favorites? 0-4 ATS. So, no, I ain't off the big win against Clemson, which, look, they played good. I don't want to take it all away from Notre Dame. That defense just was swarming DJU, and then Cade Klubnik came in, and he wasn't really any better. That defense was excellent last week, but that offense with Drew Pine and I like Mayer, the tight end. He's gonna be a force in the NFL. That guy, no question about that. But I'm talking. They still don't have a great receiving game. I mean, the running game sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and you got to be very efficient offensively when you get because there's not going to be many possessions in a game with Navy involved. To cover this kind of number, you need a high level of offensive execution. And, are you going to get that from Notre Dame is going to be the question. And say what you will about Navy, but Navy hung tough against Cincy last week. They lost by 10. They have shown some instances where, they have been able to hang inside the numbers of this magnitude. The SMU game, they lost by 6. They beat Temple. Really, there's one game that they've been really, truly blown out this year, too, and that was Memphis and that was Houston. 2 pretty high-powered offenses. I don't consider Notre Dame to be that kind of offensive football team. So I like the points here with Navy getting 17 in this spot. The total is low, again, because it's a Navy game, but I could see it creeping over that number, honestly. I think 40, given the situation, a little bit too low, but I certainly like the side even more than that. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, this one's just difficult. Notre Dame, the better football team, but will they take care of business? You mentioned the possessions with Navy. Notre Dame just needs to run it. Pine's not going to throw much, but this Notre Dame defense has played well. Syracuse, the Clemson the last few weeks, and they could key on Navy here. I don't think there's a ton of points. And we talked about this on Monday on the Hitting the Book show. In the last, 20 years, it seems like I watch every single one of these games. There's tight ones, and then that's just down to a point or a field goal, or Notre Dame's blown out Navy. And that's what I have a feeling is going to happen today. either Notre Dame jumps out on top and it's over. We know Navy can't come from behind, so that's when they get in trouble when they're down 3 touchdowns or something like that. So I still, hey, you're giving me those points. That's where I'd be with Navy here.
All right, leaning toward Navy here as well. All right, Oklahoma, West Virginia in the Big 12. Oklahoma, 8.5-point road favorites, 68.5 the total. There's no way I'm laying this kind of price on the road with Oklahoma. It's not happening. But at the same time, I'll tell you what, I'm a little bit leery of taking West Virginia right now because their last 3 games have not been good. They haven't covered in 3 straight games. This defense is just a complete and utter sieve right now for West Virginia. And look, Oklahoma's defense is a sieve too. That's why I like the over in this game. I think we see points. The total here at 68.5. But as far as a side goes, it's tricky. I mean, how can I even take West Virginia getting this kind of number of points at home? I guess I'd lean West Virginia, but they're giving up 31, 41, 48, and 40. In their last 3 games, they've been absolutely horrendous in terms of the defensive side of the football the last few weeks. And even JT Daniels' play has been erratic here the last few weeks. That offense didn't function against Iowa State. 8 of 22 for Daniels in that game. Garrett Green ended up coming into the game late for them when it got out of hand. Oklahoma, though, laying points with their defense is not something I'm looking to do. When they've been laying a field goal or more, other than the Nebraska game and the UTEP game, it's been dreadful. I mean, in Big 12 play, as favorites of a field goal or more, they are 0-4 ATS. So it would only be West Virginia for me, but man, the defense is so bad, and I can see Dylan Gabriel having a field day against it. So that's why I prefer the total. I like it up and over 68.5. What do you think here?
He might have a field day, but yeah, there's no way in hell I'd play Oklahoma laying those points. And West Virginia's been horrible, but they're at home. Their backs against the wall. They desperately need a win. 3-6. They were 1-5 in conference. They haven't been able to give him any time. Daniels, they have some good wide receivers, West Virginia, that can make some plays. So they need to get it to him against a bad Oklahoma defense. That's what I think can keep them in it. I think you mentioned there's points in this one, but yeah, it's West Virginia or nothing here, +8.
Yeah, I think when you look at it here, it has to be West Virginia by default. No question about that. I think that's definitely the side you got to lean with. It's just I might end up adding it. I mean, and hope that Morgantown crowd pulls them through. I don't know how big the crowd's going to be because you wonder if they've soured on the team. I mean, 3-6 is not what they expected this season, and they've got to win out just to go bowling. That's where we're at right now with West Virginia. All right, speaking of Virginia, another Virginia school, Pittsburgh taking on Virginia here. We got the Panthers 5.5-point road favorites, 41.5 the total. I'm laying it with Pittsburgh, honestly. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of laying points with Pittsburgh this year, but Virginia's horrendous. I mean, they really are. They're terrible. They haven't played good football for all season long, pretty much. They beat Georgia Tech. They lost to Miami, which is all brutal. And they got a backdoor score against North Carolina last week. Otherwise, they would have, failed to cover in that game. However, the offense did show something. I mean, finally last week, Brennan Armstrong and the offense got going a little bit. And keep in mind, they had a lot of their key skill position players and wide receivers out last week. Last minute, they were ruled out. And still, they managed 28 points. So maybe it's a sign that the offense can be a little bit better here down the stretch. Maybe. And look, Pitt defense, some weeks it's good, some weeks it's not. They were great last week, but let's be honest. Syracuse offense has fallen to the shits since Garrett Schrader got injured. This Del Rio Wilson kid has not been it for Syracuse. So I don't want to give Pitt too much credit for how their defense played. I like Pitt here as long as it stays below a touchdown. And I think this is a sneaky over, honestly, at 41.5. Virginia put up 28. Finally, we saw some offense from them. We've seen Pitt in past games be able to score points. This is the lowest total of the season for a Pittsburgh Panthers game by far, 41.5. I just think they've downgraded the offenses here of these two teams way too much now. I think 41.5, there's value to go over the total, especially with Virginia coming off one of their best offensive games of the year, and they haven't had many. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I don't like anything about this football game. I don't want to lay it with Pitt here on the road. And I'm not crazy about Virginia, but they've been decent. They're at home and as a dog. I'd be on the other side if I were to play this. I think Armstrong starting to look a little bit better. It's taken some time, just complete different offense than it was last year. I still think they have kind of a decent defense, does Virginia. But you're right with the total. Maybe it's too low. I'm not going to mess with it. Maybe it's low and it will creep over. But this is one that was a cross off for me.
Shout out to our herding teammates. Both of them are in the chat right now. Big Ragoo and DJ Big Boss. We hope you're feeling better soon, both of you. And we can't wait to have you back here with us. And DJ Big Boss makes a great point. I'm looking for teams that have thrown in the towel and quit. Yeah, you will find teams like that. Remember Florida International last year? How bad they were? They just quit down the stretch. And they were so bad that you bet against them every week and you cashed a ticket. So those are the kind of teams and situations you do want to look for. And Colorado, yeah. Colorado, look, USC was sleepwalking for like a good portion of that game, and USC still covered against Colorado last night. That's how bad Colorado is. I mean, Colorado's just had a miserable nightmare season. All right, Indiana, Ohio State. Ohio State 40.5 point home favorite, 61.5 the total. I'm just going to bet over here because I could see Ohio State offensively really putting it on Indiana. Indiana has a horrible defense. The pass defense in particular is just brutal. I mean, this should be a big day in the passing game for C.J. Stroud and his talented group of receivers. You know, on the flip side, can Indiana chip in some offense? They might be able to. I believe from the last indication I saw, they're going to be turning back to Bazelak at the quarterback spot for this game today, which, to be honest with you, is probably the guy that gives them their best chance. Jack Tuttle came in for a bit, but now he's out for the season due to injury. So Bazelak, now back from injury, is going to get the start. And I think Ohio State, after being so lethargic offensively against Northwestern last week, which was really weather-related, there was some rain, there was a lot of heavy wind as well for that game against Northwestern. And you're going to look at it and say, what happened to Ohio State's offense? What happened? Are they in the gutter now? No, they're fine. They're still great. It was a terrible weather game, and it definitely negatively impacted their offense. I think you're going to see them get back to that explosive, big play offense today. The total's been bet up. I think it's been bet up for a reason. I agree with the move. I like over. Even at 61.5, up from 58, I still like the over here. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, good luck. I don't want to bet this game at all. Ohio State probably rolls. They sleptwalk through that Northwestern game. I probably come out early and win big. But I don't want to have that happen again, with some of these big schools. This is just a cross-off for me. Ohio State probably even gets their team total. I mean, if they're on here, they should score 50, but I don't know if that happens.
All right, Missouri and Tennessee, SEC action. Tennessee, 19.5 point home favorites, 57 the total in this one. I'm on Missouri here. What number did I get? I got 20 and 20.5. I missed the 21. I was so pissed off with that. No, you know what I did? I actually bought up a half point to 21. So, and I don't normally do that, and I don't advise doing that, but I did it for that because I think 21 is such a significant number that I did it for that. But 20.5, and I bought a half point up to 21. I still like Missouri at 19.5 now. Their defense has been really good. I mean, let's give that defense credit. Couldn't stop anything last year. It's been a lot better this year, and we've seen Missouri play up to competition at times. They gave Florida a battle. They took Georgia down to the wire earlier this season. Not many teams can say they've done that. Hell, Tennessee can't even say they've done that. Tennessee got whipped by Georgia in comparison to how Missouri played against them. Now, granted, Georgia probably didn't have the same focus, intensity. They weren't as locked in to play Missouri, obviously, as probably they were against Tennessee. But nevertheless, you got to give Missouri credit for that. And I worry about Tennessee now. The first loss of the season, where are their heads at after getting spanked by Georgia? They're laying a big number here against a defense that's been capable the last few weeks. I think Missouri can hang in this big number, inflated number. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, it is a lot. What are we going to get from Tennessee? Back here at home, huge favorite. I like the under here. We see some rain. I think Missouri's defense is pretty good. And even if they win big, kind of like maybe the Kentucky game, I don't know if there's that many turnovers. That game stayed well under the total. At this over, as long as this was over 56, I think we've seen Tennessee's defense pretty good all season long. This Missouri offense isn't great, but they've been able to keep, in games. So I like the under here. I do like the points too. It's just, you don't have the 21 anymore. So I lean the points, but I like the under better.
All right, liking the under better here in this one. We'll have to wait and see. Again, this is very interesting to see how Tennessee either comes out, and if they're really angry and they play their best, they probably could win this game by 3 touchdowns or more and cover the number. But that's a big if. We're gonna have to wait and see what kind of what level of enthusiasm we get for Tennessee, because that was humbling last week. They thought they were on Georgia's level, and Georgia says, no, you're not. That was a very impressive win for Georgia. And then they just took their foot off the gas in the second half and coasted to victory. By the way, Connor liking the under here, 8-1 under the total for Missouri this year. They've been an under machine. The first game of the season for them against Louisiana Tech went over the total, and every other game since then has gone under for Missouri. So that trend, we'll see if it keeps going here today against Tennessee in this one. All right, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. We've got Kentucky 17-point home favorites, 45.5 the total. This is my clear pass of the early card. I mean, I'm not laying 17 with Kentucky. I don't think Will Levis is 100% from a health standpoint either. I think he's been battling something the last few weeks. And they squeaked past Missouri last week, but it was not a pretty victory for the Wildcats. Their offense is still a little bit shaky. But that's what makes this game a tough game to handicap. Why I'm passing. It's a struggling offense. I don't want to say a bad offense, but it's an offense that's having some tough times the last few weeks against a defense that can't stop anybody. So who's going to win that battle here? Kentucky's offense or Vanderbilt's defense? But I don't trust Vanderbilt enough. If I had to, I'd lean to the Commodores, but not enough to bet it. Connor, what do you think here?
Yeah, I couldn't get there either with them. I think Kentucky wins this one. Just kind of a get through it game. A lot like this game. Another one. We have some rain. Could be sloppy. Kentucky game. I'd lean under here. This is already obviously dropped. And we know Vandy's defense is bad. They've gotten a little bit better over the last year or so. So I lean under. You've kind of missed the boat there. And I think Kentucky in the end probably covers. They're just banged up right now, so I can't take them.
Yeah, definitely. Not a good weather day. You're right about that in Lexington, Kentucky today. That is for sure. All right, Southern SMU and South Florida. We've got SMU 17.5-point road favorite, 72.5 the total. That might have been one of the damnedest games I've ever seen in college football, that SMU Houston game last week. I mean, it was just pinball football. Like, it was just nobody was stopping anybody. It was big play after another, and it ended up 77-63 in favor of SMU over Houston. 140 points in that game. It was just one of the craziest shootouts you'll ever see. Tanner Mordecai returned from injury in that game. Boy, did he play well. He absolutely lit up that Houston defense, which is just a complete joke now, if you ask me, with what we've seen from Houston this season. That was supposed to be a good defense, and they've been anything but. That's now 3 straight covers for SMU. Back-to-back wins by double digits against Houston and Tulsa. I think this could be a little bit of a tricky spot, though, here against South Florida. We're starting to see a pattern with South Florida the last few weeks. Competitive game, get blown out. Competitive game, get blown out. Well, this is their week to have a competitive game, and their head coach got fired, Jeff Scott. It looks like the special teams coach is taking over in the interim as the head coach. And look, if you've been betting, especially in the first week after a coaching change, if you've been betting these teams after a coaching change, if you've been betting all teams every week after they've made a coaching change, entering this week, you are profitable. There was a winning ATS record. I think this is too many points here. For a defense that just gave up 63 last week against Houston, and I like SMU offensively, but the one thing South Florida can do is they can move the football. Their defense is brutal, South Florida, but they can move the football a little bit. I think I'm going to take a shot with the Bulls here off the coaching change as South Florida here, plus 17.5. And I like the over, even at a high number. I think this can get to the high 70s. 72.5, I think, for these two offenses and these two defenses is still too low. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, SMU, you talked about, have been good the last few weeks. I think it's dangerous if you want to lay these points on the road in South Florida. You mentioned the coaching change. They've been able to hang in, especially at home. Their defense is bad, but they've been able to score points. Even if SMU's up 23, I think the back door is swinging way open in this game. I'd be leery of laying it. So, yeah, I'm with you. It'd be South Florida or nothing. There should be points. That's a lot, though.
Yeah, I mean, but SMU might not punt. But I do think South Florida will find some offense here in this game. I really do, because that's South Florida. The one thing too is they might play loose too. I mean, we know Jerry Bohannon's out for the year. They've been going back and forth with Travis Marsh, Jordan Smith as their quarterbacks, but they've been serviceable enough, and the run game should still be able to work here. I think for South Florida, I think that's the key handicap here, because SMU defense has given up 201 rushing yards per game. Horrible run defense for SMU, and that's where South Florida moves the football on the ground. So that definitely should play into South Florida offensive success here in this game today. All right, next up, we continuing through the noon Eastern kickoffs. Next up here is Purdue and Illinois in the Big Ten. Illinois 6-point home favorites, 44 the total in this one. We're expecting some wind here in Champaign, and you would think that is going to negatively impact Purdue. Purdue likes to throw the ball more. Illinois, a more run-heavy offense. I think it's a bounce-back spot for Illinois. It's not my strongest bet, but I did have a piece of Illinois here, -6. I think they do get right, and I do worry about the wind impacting Purdue's offense. And to be honest with you, the Purdue defense has also fallen on some hard times in recent weeks. They give up 24 to a pedestrian Iowa offense, 35 to Wisconsin, 37 to Nebraska. You know what I mean? The defense has definitely not played as well in recent weeks for Purdue. Look, Illinois fell into one of those things last week against Michigan State where they moved the ball at will, up and down, and it was just missed field goal, fourth down stop, turnover. It was just that kind of day where they were moving the ball and they were just incapable of finishing drives, where if they finish drives, they probably win that game against Michigan State by double digits. Instead, they lose outright. I don't think I punish Illinois too much for that loss. I think they play better today at home once again. I'll lay less than a field touchdown here with Illinois. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I think they bounce back too. I like them. You mentioned, we talked about Monday's show, and you just mentioned it now. The stats was totally different. All the fourth downs he went for and all those opportunities, because, I think that score did not show how that game went. Purdue's been struggling. O'Connell's been struggling. Interceptions. I don't know. And you mentioned the defense has been very good. Still, it doesn't look like good conditions here. I'd be on the under. I know this is not the best here at 44, but smash mouth game. Give me the under.
Yeah, the under makes sense. And in a game with wind conditions, definitely you can see why the under's taken some money. Rutgers and Michigan State now in the Big Ten. Michigan State 10-point home favorites, 41.5 the total in this game. Big game, really, honestly. I'm not joking either. 4-5, both teams. They both need victories here in order to really get bowl eligibility. So this ends up being a very big game here between these two teams. We'll see how it plays out. When you look at it for Rutgers, obviously the offense has been in tough the last couple weeks. They play Michigan, they play Minnesota. They only score 17 points in those two games. Gavin Wimsatt has definitely struggled at the quarterback spot. 2 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. Hasn't been good. They fired the offensive coordinator. That really hasn't given them the jolt offensively they had hoped. No question about that. But maybe the Michigan State defense will be a jolt to this Rutgers offense, because they have definitely struggled this year. They have not played well of late. Maybe this is a spot where they can get going here in this one. They've got better stats as well than Michigan State. If you look at yards per play, all of those key statistics, Rutgers has the better numbers than Michigan State. I think it's too many points for Michigan State. I know they beat Illinois. It was a bit of an upset, but let's not forget Illinois moved the ball up and down. And like I said, it was just they turned the ball over. They had some fourth down, failed conversions, missed kicks. I mean, all kinds of stuff kept points off the board for Illinois. So I think the markets are giving Michigan State too much credit for that win. I like Rutgers +10 here. I think it's too many points for the Spartans here to be laying. And I think it's a sneaky over. I mean, we're talking 40, in a college football game. And Michigan State's defense hasn't been good the last several weeks. And their offense, I think, can move it a little bit against Rutgers' defense. So at 40, I'm interested in the over. I think it's just too low now with the total, and I like the dog. What do you think here, Con?
Yeah, Rutgers can't move the ball. I don't want to. Maybe this is a better spot this week for them. But yeah, Michigan State has been getting a little bit better. I don't think they should be laying 10. I lean Rutgers. I couldn't take them though. And on that total, I'm not so sure. There seems like there's over money on this game. This line really hasn't moved. Stuck at 41. It's just a game I passed.
All right, good stuff. All right, next up, we've got, as we continue along here, let me just see here. LSU, Arkansas, next up at noon Eastern time. Of course, we'll see how big game for LSU to see that they don't have a letdown after the big win against Alabama. 3.5-point road favorite, 60.5 the total. I like the over in this game for sure. I've been on Arkansas overs a bunch, and LSU has certainly turned into an over team with that offense, which is suddenly very explosive. Jaden Daniels and company have been moving the ball. I think they're going to move the ball pretty successfully here against this bad Arkansas secondary. And look, the passing game early in the season wasn't there for LSU. It's there now. I mean, he's got confidence throwing the ball. We always knew he could run it, Daniels, but now he's starting to chuck the ball down the field. 3 straight overs as well for LSU. Arkansas games have gone over the total 4 of the last 5. Liberty is a slower paced team. Good defense kind of drew them into a low-scoring game last week. Plus, I don't think Arkansas had their heads in it. I really think they were flat last week against Liberty, and that played to that game only having 40 points. I think they will be up for this game. It's LSU. You kind of want to spoil their season. I like the over here in this game. It's tricky on the side. Handicapping 101 says you take Arkansas here because it's LSU in a huge potential letdown spot after the Alabama win, but at the same time, it also feels like LSU is significantly better than Arkansas at this stage of the season. So that's going to have me probably stay off the side and just look toward the over. I'd lean Arkansas, honestly. I would take 3.5 before I lay 3.5 with LSU. It's just that dubious a spot for LSU. But I can't deny that right now they're certainly more than a little bit better than Arkansas. So that's why I'm going back and forth with the side, and that's probably why I'll stay off it. Just a lean Arkansas. What do you think here, Connor? LSU, Arkansas.
Yeah, it just was that weird, shitty, you talked about on Monday game with Liberty out of conference. Why did they do that? And they weren't in it. That first half, they were just asleep. We mentioned on the show, Jefferson's really banged up. I mean, it's rough for him right now, but it is a rough one for LSU after the huge win at night against Bama. And now come here. I think they're the better team. But man, laying points here, I don't want nothing to do with them. So this was just a pass. If I have to, I'll take Arkansas. That defense though, still not very good. Does this go back and forth and become an over? I mean, I lean that way. So.
Yeah, I mean that was an emotional environment after they won that game. I mean, obviously they stormed the field. Players are just beyond happy. You got tears welling up in the crocodile tears, I call them. And Brian Kelly in the post-game interview last week after they beat Alabama. Oh man, it's got all the elements of LSU just not laying an egg, but obviously, falling flat. We'll see. Are they ready can they withstand prosperity? Are they ready to handle it now? Hey, they could be in the SEC championship game now if they keep winning. Can they handle this growing pressure now that's on them?
Real quick, I would just too. I mean, always you got the hook here. Even some places had 4, but I think you just take Arkansas money line here.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Very interesting. Yeah, I think if you take Arkansas, they either win the game or LSU probably wins comfortably. I think we're looking at one or the other here in this game. All right, let's go to UL Monroe and Georgia State. Georgia State 13.5-point home favorites, 59.5 the total in this game. I certainly project this to be high scoring because you look at Monroe, they are definitely more of an offensive team, pretty bad defensive team. Heading into this matchup against Georgia State. They've gone over the total in 3 straight games. 4 of the last 5 ULM games have gone over the total as well. And when you look at the matchup, their weakness in the run defense, that is what you don't want against Georgia State, who can pretty much only move the football on the ground. I mean, this quarterback, Darren Granger, he is horrible throwing the ball sometimes. I've seen some ugly interceptions from this guy, really bad. But they can absolutely run the football. No question about that. And ULM has a pretty bad run defense. But I like this ULM offense. I like the way their quarterback is playing. 31 points against a pretty solid Texas State defense. Texas State is a bad offense, but their defense is pretty solid. Chandler Rogers was pretty good. In fact, he's had a solid year, in my opinion. 70% completions, almost 2,000 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions for him this year. It's not like Georgia State's defense has been good this season. They've given up big points. They've given up big plays. In fact, Georgia State's defense, 97th in the country against the 64th, I should say, against the pass, 226 through the air. That's not great. They've struggled with their run defense too. I think we get points both ways. I like this over. I actually think it's too many points with Georgia State. I know they've been a little bit better here the last couple of weeks. They've won 2 games in a row against Old Dominion and Southern Miss, dominant fashion, double-digit wins. But ULM's been really feisty. I mean, they beat Texas State. They covered against a very good South Alabama team, 41-34, lost by 7 and covered against Coastal Carolina, another pretty solid team. I think I would take the points with the Warhawks here, ULM. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't just be loving laying those points with Georgia State, even though they played well the last few weeks. Monroe's covered some games throughout the year here. I kind of like the over, though. I think this gets over the total here a little bit. So I'm with you. I lean over.
All right, both of us liking the over. All right, we go to the next matchup here. It is another 1 p.m. Eastern kickoff. James Madison, Old Dominion. JMU, 7.5-point road favorites, 48.5 the total in this game. 7-point road favorites. They are 48 the total. I definitely like the over here. Old Dominion's offense has gotten a little bit better the last few weeks. James Madison defense has kind of fallen apart. And James Madison in general has kind of fallen apart here after that 5-0 start. They're now 3 straight losses, 3 straight failed point spread covers as well. 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread the last 3 games. Their defense, like I said, has really struggled. I mean, bad Marshall offense even scored 26 against James Madison, 34 allowed to Louisville last week, 45 to Georgia Southern. That defense looks like they're running on fumes. They're wearing down late in the season, which sometimes happens with these teams where you don't have as much depth on one side of the football. Can Old Dominion get their offense going here is the question. Shut out by a very good Marshall defense. Marshall's terrible offensively, but they're good defensively. I think they could. And I think when you look at James Madison's offense, they faced a very good Marshall defense and a tough assignment against Louisville. Let's not forget, before that, Todd Centeio and this offense were putting up 38, 42, 40. I'm hearing Centeio's a little bit more healthier this week. So I think I'm going to take a shot here over 48. Nothing on the side. I don't trust Old Dominion enough, but we're at the point now where James Madison, the value ship has sailed. You know what I mean? I mean, the time to bet James Madison was the first month of the season. They're clearly been an overvalued commodity the last few weeks, so I ain't laying 7 with them either on the road. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want either of these teams. I don't want to lay points with James Madison, the way they're playing football right now. And Old Dominion just can't score. They haven't been very good all year. I wanted 2 touchdowns to look their way. They're just a team I don't want to bet on right now. So this was an ugly one. It's a dog or pass, but this is a dead pass for me.
All right, Rice and Western Kentucky. Next up, we've got Western Kentucky, about 13.5-point home favorites in this game. The total right now, 61 in this matchup here. Rice, we've talked about Rice, how they're 1 win away from bowl eligibility. So Rice essentially has 3 games to get bowl eligible, and they're not going to be easy games. You know, they're going to play Western Kentucky. They're obviously a dog here. UTSA, they're going to be very tough to win that. And North Texas, who have really had, a better last few weeks, the Mean Green. So don't take anything for granted that they'll get win number 6. They're off a big win against UTEP, 37-30 last week. So we'll see how they fare here in this one. It was a Thursday night game. I like the over in that game, and that's what I like here in this game, is over the total with Rice and West. I've talked about this all season with Rice, how they've been an over machine. It's just death taxes and Rice overs. That's what it's been, 8-1 to the over for Rice in their 9 games this year. I think we see another one here. I think their offense is getting better. Their quarterback, TJ McMahon, he's been solid. He had a good 334-yard passing game last week against a very good UTEP defense. To play that UTEP defense and score 37, you're doing something right. I think they can score on Western Kentucky a little bit. Western Kentucky's going to move the ball, though, on Rice. There's no question about that. Rice has given up 41 to Louisiana Tech, 56 to Charlotte, 30 to a UTEP offense that is pedestrian. Think about that. UTEP's offense is pedestrian as it gets. and they don't play fast. And Rice still gave up 30 points last week to UTEP. So Western Kentucky and that Austin Reed and that air raid pass-heavy offense should get theirs. I get it that Western Kentucky has trended under 5 straight, but only one of those totals has been this low during that 5-game under run. All the totals were in the 70s and high 60s except for one, and now we've got this total down around the 60 mark. I think it's too low. I like over 61. I'd lean to Rice, too, with the points, honestly, plus 13.5. Rice does have a winning point spread record this year, 6-3 against the number. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, this is tricky. I kind of lean the over that it gets back to there. I mean, Western Kentucky plays so well. They jumped out so good last week. Charlotte was so bad early with those bad picks. I mean, they got 59 on their own. There's your over. Could that happen? The Rice defense is that bad. I think
they also pumped the brakes. They had a huge lead. They all slowed the pace big time.
Oh yeah, the game was over. It still got over. Yeah. They'll score a ton, I think, against Rice. And I think, what are we going to get? The Western Kentucky's defense has been a little bit better. That's who they played. That's why they've had some of these unders. But I'm with you. In the end, I'd be on the over or nothing here. I'd lean Rice.
All right, Temple and Houston. We've got Houston laying a big number here, 20 points at home as favorites here, 56.5 the total. Give me Temple here. What is Houston doing laying 20? We just saw this team give up 77 freaking points last week against SMU, and we're going to lay 20 with this Civ defense? I mean, my goodness. You talk about one of the most disappointing position groups for a college football team this year in the country. It's got to be Houston's defense, because it was a very good defense last year. People were talking about how good it was going to be this year, and they've just completely been terrible, horrendous. I mean, the Navy game, okay, they played a little bit better, but again, a lot of time-consuming drives. South Florida, they gave up 27 to them, 32 to Memphis, 77 to SMU, 27 to Rice, 27 to Tulane, 48 to Kansas, 33 to Texas Tech, 35 to UTSA. Just they've been disappointing all year, this Houston defense. And all of a sudden, they've become an over machine to the tune of 8-1 to the over in their season this year, 8-1 to the over in their 9 games this year. I know Temple is a little bit of a tough team to trust, but they've covered 3 in a row since that debacle against UCF. They've been competitive, lost by 11 to Tulsa, in overtime by 7 at Navy. They crushed South Florida last week and put a 54 spot on the board. This kid of Kurt Warner, son of Kurt Warner, the legendary NFL quarterback, greatest show on turf, his son EJ Warner, he's starting to get a little bit better here, week in and week out for Temple. He's got a decent arm. He's getting more comfortable. He's had a bunch of starts now under his belt. 344 passing yards last week. They had a huge day running the football as well. I know that was South Florida, and they're an even worse defense than Houston, but I think Temple can move the football well enough, score enough points to stay in this game. I like Temple plus the points, and I like over the total this game, over 56.5. So I'm on this game both ways, side and total. Temple plus the points and over 56.5. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, the bottom line is, this is a team that gives up this many points. You want to lay this number? You're just hoping, I guess, they just get out or race out to a lead, like 28-0. And still, I wouldn't back Houston. You're right. To me, this is Temple, and the points are nothing.
Totally agree.
Warner's been better lately, like you talked about. It's made a difference because that offense was horrible to start the year.
Yeah, absolutely awful. Yeah, you're right. Houston's offense has been really good. No question. Houston, I mean, I feel bad for Clayton Tune because he's doing everything in his power. 33, 38, 42, and 63. Those are the points they've scored the last 4 games, this Houston team. He's played well, Clayton Tune. Unfortunately, he's been abandoned by his defense here much of the season. So I can't believe the total's just sitting there at 56.5. It feels like it's way too low for what we're seeing from these two teams right now. All right, let's go to the 3:30 p.m. Eastern kickoffs. Maryland, Penn State. Penn State 10.5 point home favorites, 56.5 the total. Certainly didn't love that performance by the Maryland offense, and a returning little Tua. Talia Tagovailoa struggled against Wisconsin last week. We'll have to see if this is definitely a bounce back spot here for little Tua in this game against Penn State. I don't really love the idea of laying 10.5 with Penn State, especially when Maryland's given them some trouble. in recent years. So, I have a light opinion here on Maryland here, plus the points in this game. Although I know Penn State destroyed Indiana, but like we said, Indiana's just been dreadful this year, especially on the defensive side of the football. I don't have enough trust in Penn State here, laying 10.5 here in this one. What do you think, Connor? Maryland, Penn State.
Yeah, I don't either. Like this time of the year right now, I don't want to be laying double digits with Penn State. We talked about, I think on Monday, Maryland played them close last year, but I know in years past they've gotten blown out by them. Yeah, if there's turnovers, Penn State could roll here. And I wasn't impressed, like you mentioned last week, with Maryland. I'd lean Penn State if I really had to, but I'm not going to bet this game.
All right, UMass and Arkansas State. We've got Arkansas State off a bye week. I get it. They're off a bye week. I love those late season bye weeks. They are huge because teams have played for so many weeks in a row, and then they get a bye late in the season. They get to rest up, heal up injuries, and be fresh coming out of the bye week. That is significant. So I understand why Arkansas State off a bye week might be in a bet on spot, but laying 17.5 with them here in this game, that I'm not doing. 49.5 the total in this game. That being said, I'm not taking UMass either. This was one of the games early in the week I said, okay, UMass is bad. I don't think I want them. It's a good spot for Arkansas State. They're off a bye week, but you're still talking about laying 17-7. I like Blackman. I like their offense, but their defense is still not very good. I got to lay 17.5 with this defense, albeit off a bye. That's a good thing for Arkansas State, but I don't want to lay this many. So it ended up being a pass. What do you think here? UMass, Arkansas State.
No way. It would catch me anywhere near this game. Pass.
Nice and simple. I love it. All right, next up here as we continue along, hit the like button. We appreciate everyone joining us here on the College Football Pub-Up Show. Boston College, NC State. NC State, 18-point home favorites, 41 the total. I'm going to take a contrarian view of this game. All year we've talked about these two teams are defense, and a bad offense. Well, for NC State, they had a good offense when Leary was there, but then he got injured. And Boston College, we know, has been brutal offensively much of the season. No question about that. I'm going to take a proactive approach here, though. NC State, the last 2 weeks with MJ Morris at quarterback, they finally, Dave Doran got it through his head that Jack Chambers was a stiff. He was terrible at quarterback for NC State, and he gave this MJ Morris kid a chance. He's been pretty good here in these two games. He moved the ball against Virginia Tech. They put up 30 points with him in a win against Wake Forest last week. I mean, this offense has found something with MJ Morris running the controls at the quarterback spot. So I think that offense is a little undervalued right now for NC State. Then you look at Boston College all year with Phil Jurkovec and that offensive line, just brutal. Yet against Duke last week, I don't know if this is a sign that maybe Phil Jurkovec's lost something on his fastball or whether that O-line's getting better, but they had their breakthrough offensive performance last week. And the backup quarterback, who's also going to start today because Jurkovec is still injured, Emmett Moorhead, he's going to start again today for Boston College. He had over 300 passing yards last week against Duke. 4 touchdowns. He played a great game. And they had, like I said, they had by far their best offensive game of the season, 31 points. This, to me, is a total that is based on full season numbers, full season offensive statistics, and it's not taking into account that the last couple weeks with MJ Morris, NC State's looked like a better offense, 22 and 30 points than with Chambers. And Boston College, maybe Moorhead's a spark for them. They just came off their best offensive showing with this guy at quarterback. Total's only 40 in this game. I'm going to buy low here over the total. Boston College, NC State, 41, I should say, the total in this game. Look, you can almost get over a 41 by accident these days in college football. I think there's reasons to like an over here at this number with these two. What do you think here, Conor Mac, BC, NC State?
Yeah, it is a little bit low, but I think they're just going off these quarterbacks. In some games, Boston College couldn't score anything. And I think if you like Boston College, their team total is 11.5 at even money. Basically, need a couple touchdowns. Or look at NC State. I think theirs is 28 or something like that. I want nothing to do with this game, though. I think NC State wins, but this number is large. I haven't been able to trust Boston College. I know they got those. I don't know how much of those points were Duke just, I don't know. They got up and then they just gave. It seemed like when they got up by 2 or 17 and they gave a touchdown. They got another touchdown. We're like, all right, you can have another one. So I just passed here.
Yeah, one of those touchdowns wasn't garbage time. You do have to late in the game. I get it. But no, that was still better than anything I've seen from Boston College's offense all year. So I think at 41, I'm interested in an over, especially because I think they're again, these are based on the full season numbers. I think both of these teams the last couple of weeks, NC State and then last week Boston College, they're playing offensively better than a total of 41 would indicate. So we'll see if that plays out. All right, next up we've got Nebraska and Michigan. Michigan 30-point home favorites, 49.5 the total in this game. I mean, I don't want to lay 30 with Michigan. I know that, especially when you look at their schedule. They've got Illinois and Ohio State, huge games against pretty good teams to wrap up the season. And look, they were in a battle with Rutgers, and then the roof caved in on Rutgers. Let's not forget that. Michigan was trailing in the first half at Rutgers last week. So, they were really lethargic early, and then all of a sudden Rutgers shot themselves in the foot, bad defense, pick sixes, and all of a sudden Michigan turned it into a rout last week in the second half and still covered the closing number. I'm not laying 30, but at the same time, Nebraska's offense looks shot without Casey Thompson. The backup quarterback, the Chupa Party, has not been very good at all for Nebraska. They've got quarterback issues. The defense has actually played respectable, believe it or not, the last couple weeks. So maybe, is this an under? Could it be? I don't know. At the same time, when Michigan has a chance to run up scores against weaker opponents, we've seen them do that. Hawaii, UConn early in the year, Indiana, Rutgers last week, they didn't stop scoring. They piled up 52. That would be the one concern with the under. So I'm passing on this one. What do you think, Connor?
Shout out to our guy, Juan Martinez, with the $10 dono. And my guy.
Thank you, Juan.
Always, you can regular dono, but I like get in green full time, $4.99, become a member. So it's right near the bottom of the link. Yeah. Kind of where you can find it. But shout out to everyone that donates. I just think if you donate, might as well become a member. We need more green in this chat. Not enough green. Shout out to Harold Williams, Nunya, all our green guys there. Remember we talked about Monday. Michigan struggled in these first halves. And 4 of the last 5. Maybe take a stab with Nebraska here early.
Yep.
It looks like it's a little cold, high 30s, some rain. Maybe they hang around before they blow them out, because Michigan seems like they've been a different team the second half for most of these games and then blow them out. So I go Nebraska early.
What do you think of J.J. McCarthy? Do you think of him as a quarterback that's going to really be a problem? Let's say they make the playoff, which is still a big if because they got the Ohio State game to get through. And even the Ohio State game, could he actually trade points with C.J. Stroud, or if they play at Georgia? Is that offense, him at quarterback going to work? Because I still think the jury's out on him against an elite team.
Yeah, I think it's really out there. I mean, they've played really nobody. These games are, and even Ohio State, I don't know how big that is. They're very good, but I still think that defense, Ohio State, look what Penn State did. I think you can move the ball, but he has had no pressure in it at all so far this year. But it's coming. We're getting late here in the year. We'll see.
Yeah, he's going to have his chance against actually the next 2 weeks. Throw Illinois into the mix. Illinois can play defense, so that's going to be a good challenge next week for McCarthy and this Michigan offense as well. All right, next up we've got Miami and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech 1.5 point home favorites, 44 the total. Piss on this game as far as I'm concerned. Pass on it. I mean, I'm not taking Georgia Tech here laying points, but Miami, hell no. I'd actually take Georgia Tech before I take Miami. The wheels have fallen off.
Yeah.
That was a rivalry game, and you got your head caved in by Florida State. Mario Cristobal, how's that working out? Easy pass. What do you think, Connor?
How does he have a job? I don't even know how he's employed right now. Yeah. Fire him immediately. Yeah. Miami, listen to this. Georgia Tech. I don't love to bet this game, but take them. They roll.
Yeah, at least you're seeing some battle from them here since their coaching change, and Miami might be in need of one right now as well. That offense is just pathetic at this stage. They can't move the ball. They can barely get across midfield in games. Borregales, they're great. They have a great kicker. That's about it. That's the only good thing on the football team right now. They have no defense. They have no offense, but they have a hell of a kicker in Andres Borregales for them. He's been the only player that shows up for them every week. Unfortunately, you can't win a game with a kicker only. All right, next up, we've got Louisville and Clemson. Clemson 7-point home favorites. The total in this one, 52 across the board. This is just a fascinating game because Clemson's tough at home. Clemson's off a loss. Clemson's been very good off a loss in the Dabo Swinney era. But is this the same Clemson team? I mean, offensively, they have Will Shipley. They have an erratic quarterback play. I don't think they have the receivers they've had in years past. The defensive line is still tough, and I think that could be a concern. Can Louisville run the ball? Can Malik Cunningham even throw the ball just a little bit with accuracy and efficiency? Because if he can, look, the secondary for Clemson's weak this year. They've been picked apart multiple times. This is not a great Clemson secondary. So this is a fascinating game. Does Clemson bounce back? It's a tough one for me to bet. It's a tough one for me to get a real gauge on. Louisville has been better, but let's not forget one of those wins against Wake Forest completely turnover-aided because Wake Forest just couldn't hang on to the ball. So it'll be an interesting matchup. I'm fascinated to watch it, but I don't have a strong take on it from a betting perspective. I would lean under, honestly, if anything here. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I kind of lean under in this one. I know Clemson's back here at home, and I could see them winning. I've been impressed a little bit. I've mentioned this on Monday. I've seen Louisville do this in the past, and then they just get waxed here. Cunningham, you know what the big thing is? Notre Dame just ran it all down Clemson's throat all game long, and Louisville's been running it lately. If they can do that here, they're in this football game. And on the flip side, Louisville's defense has gotten better and better, it seems like, every game. I like the points with Louisville, and I lean under as well.
I'm with you in terms of if I had to play something, I'd lean Louisville, but just a lukewarm opinion there. App State Marshall. App State 2.5-point road favorites, 48 the total in this game. I think App State's better than Marshall. Does have a pretty good defense, but their offense is just Charles Huff is just struggling to find answers right now, searching for answers for this team offensively, and it hasn't been good. I mean, the win last week was all defense. They only scored 12 points. The quarterback play has been pretty bad for Marshall all season long. They're going to have to, and look, as good as their defense has played, because Cam Fancher hasn't been the answer. We know Henry Columbi early in the season struggled for Marshall. He ended up getting replaced. I mean, Marshall's on an under tear, 6 straight unders going into this game, 3 straight for App State. So the under might get there, but the App State team is playing pretty solid the last few weeks. They're off a frustrating loss to Coastal Carolina, but we've seen this offense really start to get going. They got Cameron Peoples back, which was good to see. No question about that. And obviously Chase Bryce has fit in here pretty nicely at quarterback, certainly better than he was at either Duke or Clemson. I just think when I look at these two teams, I match them up. They're both 5-4. I just think App State is the better of these two teams right now. And at least less than a field goal, as long as it doesn't get higher than that, I like the Mountaineers here, App State, to get the job done. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I'm not going to touch the side. You know, App State doesn't have a very good defense, I don't think. But they played a few teams like A&M, a couple others where it stayed under.
They've actually played a much tougher schedule than Marshall.
Yeah, and Marshall, dead under team for me. Yeah. I don't know how they score or not. I don't know. Maybe App State defense looks good. And that's why I was close. I haven't pulled the trigger here because I really like this under as well, because I don't know how much Marshall even scores. I mean, this team's so slow. They don't do really anything crazy, this offense. Just hand it off. So, yeah, I'm strong to the under here.
Nice little situational advantage, too, for Marshall because App State, because they played the Thursday night last week. A couple extra prep days here for them to get ready for this game against Marshall. All right, Central Florida, one of the games of the day. This is actually for first place in the AAC. UCF and Tulane, a battle for first and pretty much you can say that whoever wins this game is probably going to be in the AAC championship game. We've got Tulane 1.5-point home favorites, 54.5 the total in this game. You know I'm riding the green wave. You know it. Come on, I've been on Tulane all year. How am I going to not take them in their biggest game of the season right here against? And look, UCF to me is still a team that on the road, they got to prove it to me. A lot of their best performances have been at home. They got to go to New Orleans for this one. This probably is going to be one of the best atmospheres we've seen for a Tulane home game in a long time. This is one of the biggest games they've played in a long time. They have been remarkably good. They are actually a rather shocking loss against Southern Miss as 12-point favorites away from being undefeated this year, but still very much in the conversation to be playing like a New Year's Six bowl game this year is Tulane. It's been a terrific year. Good defense. Tajay Spears, a great running back. Michael Pratt has had a very good year at the quarterback spot. Good arm, mobile, athletic, does it all. I like Tulane here in this one. And look, UCF banged up with Reese Plumlee, questionable. Mikey Keene stepped in and played well against Memphis last week in the victory. Let's give him credit for that. Played a really good game. He's had a bunch of starts. He can certainly go in there and play well, Mikey Keene, for UCF, regardless of whether he is at quarterback, Keene, or it's Plumlee coming back. I like Tulane here. I've literally been riding the green wave all season from a betting standpoint with Tulane. I'm not jumping off the bandwagon now. I think they get it done. Close game, tough game. UCF's good, but I think at home, Tulane finds a way. And I like Willie Fritz. Not that I don't like Malzahn, but I really think Willie Fritz has done one of the better coaching jobs in the country this year. No question about it. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I think Tulane gets it done in the end in a close one. I think that, it's just one here because the money's all over Tulane here, and this line just hasn't moved. It hasn't moved to 2.5. So, but I still think they're the better team. And Central Florida, I just don't know what we'll get on the road. Like you mentioned, they've been just great at home. So, in the end, I think a little bit better defense in a real tight one, but I think Tulane can pull it out.
Look at the defensive numbers. Tulane does have the better defensive numbers. We'll see if that comes to fruition here in this one. I know Big Ragoo likes the over. I think actually he mentioned in our DM when he said he was sick and not going to be on the show today, he really liked, I think that was his best bet if I'm not mistaken, UCF Tulane over 54.5. It does feel low. I mean, these are two pretty solid defenses when they're on their game, but it also feels like it's accounted for in the total. Like this is a lower total than we've seen. And look, Tulane's actually gone over 2 of their last 3 games. We saw UCF give up 28 to Memphis last week. So, if both teams get to 28, you got an over in this game. And I think that's still possible, even though both defenses are capable. So I don't mind the look for Big Ragoo there with the over here. All right, next up we've got, as we continue along here, Northwestern, Minnesota. Minnesota 17-point home favorites, 41 the total in this game. Under. I think that's probably the only way I would play this game is the under. I mean, it's a lot of points to be laying with a very plodding, pedestrian Minnesota offense, but I've been burned a few times now, taking Northwestern as big underdogs. The Iowa game stands out. Wisconsin, they got blown out. Although they did cover last week against Ohio State. 21-7, but again, the weather, I think it was more the weather stopped Ohio State's offense, not necessarily Northwestern in that game last week. So I'd only take Northwestern, but I'm going to pass. I'd lean under as well. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't want nothing here. I haven't been able to trust Northwestern as a dog, which has normally been really good over the years with Pat Fitzgerald. You talked about they did last week with Ohio State. I still don't trust them. I don't think their defense is that great either. Minnesota, a dead under team, but this was just a pass all the way around. All
right, we continue along here. We've got here on the Saturday College Football Pub-Up Show, Arizona State, Washington State. Washington State 9.5-point home favorites, 59.5 the total in this game. Total's been hammered up, and I think people are starting to see that Arizona State kind of becoming an over team since Herm Edwards got dismissed. And by the way, Herm Edwards is back on ESPN. I knew that was coming. The minute that he got fired from Arizona State, he'd end up back at the worldwide leader. But that's another story. Arizona State gives up 50 last week to UCLA, 50-36. I mean, they've been an over machine here these last 5 weeks. Washington State does have a pretty good defense, though, this year. Let's not forget that. But they did hang a 52 spot with that offense and Cam Allen against Stanford. So I'd probably lean over. I agree with the move initially, especially when it opened 55.5. It seemed a little low. It's up to 59 now, 59.5. It's getting up there, but I'd still lean over. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, it's getting up there. I've been on a bunch of Washington State unders this year. I think they win here. The number's just gotten a little out there, and same thing with the total. So I think I'm going to stay off.
All right, Army taking on Troy. Next up, we've got a good point by a big Ragoo in the chat. Northwestern left their football team in Ireland. Very true. It seems like that was the highlight of the year for them. All right, we got Army and Troy. Troy 8.5-point home favorites, 45.5 the total in this game. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of running the football. Troy runs the ball a lot. They don't have a great passing game. Gunnar Watson's a ham and egger quarterback, really, for Troy. That's about it. And Army, obviously, triple option, but Troy has a terrific defense and a really good run defense. So I really don't know how that offense is going to function here for Army in this game. I normally like to take Army as an underdog, but I don't really like how this match, Troy really shuts down the run. And if they can't run Army, what are they going to do offensively? So I'd actually lean a little bit to the favorite here, the Troy Trojans. I'm not going to lay it, but I lean to Troy, lean to the under here. What do you think, Con?
Yeah, Troy and the under's been good to me. How is Troy's doesn't have a dynamic offense, so does that help a bad Army defense where Troy only will score 27? I think so. So I lean under as well. They've been good to me all year, and they probably do cover this, but they're just not a team I want to lay over a touchdown with. Troy.
All right, next up we've got one of the big ones at 3:30, Alabama, Ole Miss, CBS. We've got Alabama 11-point road favorite, 65 the total. This is a clear pass from a side perspective. I have no idea what Alabama shows up today because now they know they're probably fucked in terms of the national championship. They're probably out of the playoff unless the only pathway is they've got to win out. LSU has to lose out the rest of the way, and Alabama would get into the SEC championship game and still maybe get through to the playoff through the back door. But that's asking a lot at this stage of the season after that loss to Tennessee. Where are their heads at after just that disheartening loss last week? In that, not to Tennessee, to LSU last week. Where are their heads at, Alabama? That's the question. That being said, they're better than Ole Miss. Ole Miss has no defense. Bryce Young could have a field day against it. And do you want to bet against, even with the questions about where their heads are at, Alabama, do you want to bet against Nick Saban off a loss? What's the numbers? It's like perfect straight up or something, terrific numbers straight up in ATS, and they've covered by an average margin of 20 plus when Alabama is off a loss in the Nick Saban era. We already saw what they did off their previous loss against Tennessee. They came back the next week against Mississippi State, and they just dominated Mississippi State in that game. So I'm off it. I don't trust Alabama in this spot, but the numbers are just ridiculously good for them off a loss and under Nick Saban. So I'm off the side. I'm just going to stick to points. I think Dart and the Ole Miss offense can do enough against Alabama defensively to put points on the board, especially at home. But Alabama, I think, can move it against that. It's getting worse by the week, that Ole Miss defense after starting the year strong. So I like over in this game. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just going to stick to the over here. I see points. When these teams get together, there's a shit ton of points. We talked about on Monday. I've seen some shitty offenses, move it real well on Ole Miss. So I think Alabama should be in the mid 40s. And I think Ole Miss, can get theirs at least 20s or 30s. So can they finally come to play? You're a double digit at home. I don't know. The whole Saban off a loss. He hasn't lost. He's blah, blah, blah. So just give me the over. Points.
All right, points indeed for both of us there. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, Big 12. Iowa State, 1.5-point road favorites, 47.5 the total. Can't bet this game until I know if Sanders is playing, and this is going to go right down to the wire, whether he plays or not. Game time decision for him at quarterback for Oklahoma State. And if you look at the backup options for Oklahoma State last week, it was not pretty. I thought we were going to see the Mike Gundy's son as the quarterback, Gunnar Gundy, but we didn't get him at the quarterback spot. We got Garrett Rangel instead. And he struggled. I'd be interested in the home dog Oklahoma State if Sanders plays, but only if he plays. Until then, it's a wait and see for me. And probably if he doesn't play, it probably goes under the total, and the betting markets have moved that way. So maybe that's a telltale sign he may not play. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I think I'm not going to mess with it. I mean, if I hear Sanders is in, maybe I'll look at it. But I already crossed this off on Monday. And you mentioned the low total. I don't want nothing to do with Oklahoma State right now.
All right, Wisconsin, Iowa. We've got Pick'em here, 35.5 the total. How about that total, 35.5? And yet I'm not betting the over here, not with these two teams. But it's a very low number, 35.5. Too low to bet under, in my opinion. I kind of like Wisconsin here. They've won 2 in a row against Purdue and Maryland. They're actually 3-1 straight up in ATS under Jim Leonhard since he took over from Paul Chryst. The offense has been a little bit better. Hell, we've seen some life and spark out of Graham Mertz, which I didn't know was possible. But he's even played a little bit better in recent weeks. Iowa, back-to-back wins and covers against Purdue and Northwestern. That defense is formidable. And even Spencer Petras the last couple of weeks, he started to come on a little bit on the offensive side of things, which is also another reason why I think at this low number, it's hard for me to bet the under with these teams. But I like Wisconsin a little bit here, just a tad. I mean, going under the road in Iowa City is never easy, but I do think I lean a little bit to Wisconsin here. I like the momentum that they have got going under the interim coach, Jim Leonhard, who, to be honest with you, if they keep winning games down the stretch, I think they're going to take the interim tag off him and make him the permanent head coach. Charlotte and Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee, 10.5-point home favorites. The Blue Raiders, 66.5, 67 the total. It's probably an over or pass game for me. I'm certainly interested in the fact we should see some points in this game. I think Middle Tennessee obviously should be able to move the ball against Charlotte. Everybody has moved the football this year against this very bad Charlotte 49ers defense. It's part of the reason why they fired the coach was probably the defense, not being good enough. Chris Reynolds, though, at quarterback's capable enough, could be able to put up some points here in this one. And Middle Tennessee's pass defense isn't great by any stretch. 275 pass yards per game allowed, 116th in the country against the pass. So that's the strength of Charlotte's offense. So I think we get points in this game, 66.5. I would lean over the total. Nothing on the side. I'd probably lay it if I had to, but not that many points, although it's tough to get there with Charlotte right now. North Texas, UAB. UAB 5.5, 6-point home favorites, 57.5 the total in this game. I like North Texas here as a dog. North Texas has really come on strong down the stretch, played better football in recent weeks. They're now at 6-4. They've been a point spread machine. 6-0 ATS in their last 6 games coming into this one. They romped Florida International 52-14, and they romped a very good Western Kentucky team 40-13 before that, and they almost beat UTSA. So this has been a nice run of football for Seth Luttrell, and I think it's a trying to save his job kind of season here for him at North Texas, and they're responding. And Austin Ani, who's been here forever, has been better and better each week at the quarterback spot for North Texas. Meanwhile, UAB, I mean, you got to wonder where their heads are at. They are not used to being 4-6 or 4-5, I should say, at this stage of the season. They basically have to win 2 of their last 3 games just to be going to a bowl game at this stage. And yes, their defense has fallen off. This is not that same UAB defense, not by any stretch of the imagination. They have had, obviously, an injury to their quarterback as well, Dylan Hopkins. We'll have to see if he's able to return. I don't think he will. He's questionable. You probably could see Jacob Zeno again. And I'll give Jacob Zeno credit. Against UTSA last week, he had his best game. He hadn't been playing well, but against the Roadrunners, he put up a lot of points. He moved the football. Zeno played all right. So give him credit for that. But I like North Texas here, plus the points. They're streaking. They're on a point spread roll right now. And UAB not playing with the defense to lay points at the moment with this squad. So I like North Texas. I probably like the over as well, because with Zeno playing better last week, he can probably move the ball a bit against North Texas. So I think it goes over the total as well. All right, C-Mac, you're back with us. I'll throw the 3 games that I talked about while you were gone. Wisconsin, Iowa, Charlotte, Middle Tennessee, North Texas, UAB. What do you like in those 3 games?
Wisconsin, Iowa. Pass. Nothing. Charlotte, Middle Tennessee. Pass. Nothing. I can't take Charlotte. I mean, I don't want to take them. There's enough games today. I'm not going to take them. But I do like North Texas. I think they can cover this number. I'm going to take a money line as well. This Alabama team just isn't the same for me. I know they're at home, which is a little better, but give me a money line.
All right, Louisiana Tech and Texas UTSA, the Roadrunners. Meet. UTSA 17.5 point home favorite, 68.5 the total. Sorry to disappoint our Jose Bouquet here, but I kind of like La Tech here. This isn't a 17 and a half. Let's lay these points with kind of a defense here for UTSA this year. They've struggled on that side of the ball big time. The defense almost blew the game against UAB last week when they had a pretty comfortable lead at one point. And Louisiana Tech with this Parker McNeil kid at quarterback, they've definitely been a little bit better a lot better offensively, in fact, and more than capable of hanging around. And Louisiana Tech in the Skip Holtz days, and even to a lesser extent this year, they've been pretty good when they've been catching big points. I mean, like double digits. And so I think Louisiana Tech covers this inflated number, even in the Alamo Dome here. And I like the over, clearly, no doubt. I think UTSA scores with Frank Harris in that passing game. But don't sleep on McNeil and the Louisiana Tech offense. They've been better with him under center. So I like the over as well. What do you think here, Connor? Louisiana Tech, UTSA?
Yeah, I'm off here. I don't mind the points a little bit with Tech. I just think they'll be chasing. One thing, though, they've been one of the better over teams. And I'm sure you know that. Is La Tech, and even getting this high a number they've got there. So I know it is a ton of points, but it just might get over.
I agree with that. And indoors, so obviously you're not going to have any weather concerns whatsoever here when you're talking about this game taking place. All right, next up, we've got South Carolina and Florida, SEC. We've got Florida 8.5-point home favorites, 58.5 the total in this game. Florida, obviously, they had a big win last week against A&M. Although is Florida a little overvalued now after these last couple games? I know they hung tough with Georgia, covered the number, beat up A&M 41-24. First of all, A&M season's fallen apart. It's gone to the shits. I don't want to go too crazy about that. And they had the flu bug running rampant through the Texas A&M team last week. So I don't want to give Florida too much credit for that win. Now they're laying a big number, and I don't like Florida in this kind of point spread role. I'm trying to look back and see how they've done this year when laying more than a field goal this year. Missouri, 11-point home favorites, failed to cover. 23-point home favorites against South Florida, damn near lost the game outright. 6-point favorites against Kentucky, lost the game outright. They have not been good laying more than a field goal this year. And here they are once again laying, even as favorites against LSU. 45-35. Their only convincing win against as big favorites was Eastern Washington, an FCS team. So they've not been good laying bigger points, Florida. I like South Carolina here. I know Rattler is erratic. He's one week he's good, one drive he's good, next drive he'll throw a pick or something. But I like South Carolina getting these points here in this game, more than a touchdown. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, that was the game like last week to take Florida. You rip through it. I don't want to lay 8 with them. It just seems like don't play this game or look the other way. And, South Carolina, like you mentioned with Rattler, but they've been moving it. They've been better, the last few weeks. I think they could hang here with Florida a little bit. I lead them in the points.
The run defense is a little shaky at times for South Carolina. Hopefully it hangs in there. But again, we've seen Florida really have a tough time in this point spread range as favorites in SEC play and just in general this year. So I like South Carolina here a little bit. All right, next up, we got Texas State, South Alabama. South Alabama, 16.5-point home favorites, 46.5 the total in this game. I'm laying it with the Jaguars, South Alabama. I think this is a spot for Texas State where that was a real tough loss for them last week against ULM. I mean, they coughed it up. They lost 31-30, brutal loss. You now need to win out, to be bowl eligible. I don't think that's happening. You're not winning this game. You're probably not beating Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns in your final game. Your really only good chance for a win is next week against Arkansas State, and you may not even win that game either. Just such a deflating loss for Texas State, and now you got to go on the road. You got to face South Alabama, one of the better teams here in the Sun Belt. Their only loss in Sun Belt play was to Troy. That excellent defense. Other than that, their offense has been ripping up the points with Carter Bradley, the Toledo transfer. Very good offensive team. I think this gets away from Texas State. I like South Alabama to win big. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I lean South Alabama. It seems good. It is a lot here. And what comes to play, because this total, I'm going to stay off in the end. Because if they get out big, I think this can just get over. We're not looking at a crazy total here. But that South Alabama defense can play well at times, and they've given a point, depending on the competition. But Yeah, I lean in with the points. I'm going to stay off. I want to look in this total a little bit more. You on mute?
I was going to say good observations and by Starchild letting us know that there could be some rain in that UAB game. I always say, though, when it comes to the totals, rain doesn't scare me. All right, the wind does. So let me know what the wind is, Starchild. If it's windy there, then I might get a little bit more. Because I honestly find that unless it's a pouring rain, they can still move the football. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah, and Texas State, you're right, Robert Franklin. You just said it, banged up at receiver too. I think this could be a 3-touchdown win tonight for South Alabama. All right, next up, all the rest of the games are at night. Starting with this one, we've got Kansas and Texas Tech. Texas Tech 3.5-point home favorite, 63.5 the total. I like the over here, but I don't know if I like a side here. Don't know if I want to lay more than a field goal with Texas Tech, but this ain't the spot to me that is a great spot for Kansas, right? They clinched bowl eligibility last week. You saw the celebration. Will the focus be there for Kansas this week? That's the biggest question. Bean's been serviceable at quarterback, so I like the over a little bit, but I think this is a tough week to trust Kansas, even though I usually like getting points with them. Hey, maybe they win and cover again, but after that big victory to clinch bowl eligibility, is that team going to be laser focused for this one? That's the biggest concern. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, this was coming off the bye. I think it's there all right, but in the end, I'm in a pass. I think Texas Tech could win here and cover. I don't like the quarterback, the switching and all that crap. Just stick to a guy like we talked Monday. I think there'd be points. Kansas defense was leaking, the few weeks before the bye. So I lean over.
All right, Kansas State and Baylor. We stay in the Big 12. Baylor 2.5-point home favorites, 52 the total. I think this is a tight field goal type of game either way. These are two solid teams. Martinez is back for Kansas State. I like Baylor on offense. Blake Shapen's played well. The defense, not so much this year, but certainly been a little bit susceptible at times. We'll see. Both teams are going to run the ball a lot. Kansas State will. This is one of those games where if it was 3.5 when it opened, I probably would lean Kansas State. 2.5 now, I actually probably lean Baylor a little bit at home. It's a tough game. It's going to be a close game. It's two good teams. I like both teams. I don't love betting against either one here in this spot, so it's a pass for me. Connor, what do you think?
Yeah, this one should be a good one here. 2.5 now everywhere. I like the under here a little bit. We got a lot of over money. This line's moving down, so I like the under.
Liking the under here for Connor with Kansas State Baylor. All right, next up, we've got Washington and Oregon. Certainly a fascinating matchup here as Oregon is 13-point home favorite, 73 the total. I certainly like the over even at 73. I do. This is one where you look at it, it's in the 70s. Do you get scared off it? I'm not with this Washington team. I mean, you look at some of their games. The last two have gone under, but again, Oregon State and Cal run the ball a lot, take time off the clock. The games against the more higher tempo, big play, explosive offenses, Arizona State, UCLA, go on down the list. They've all flown over the total for this Washington team. And you look at this Oregon team, they're putting up 40 every week. I mean, you might as well just pencil them in for 40 points here against Oregon. And if you can get at least into I would say, I think you're going to get 45 to 48 from Oregon. If you get 24, 28 from Washington, there's your over. And the one thing about Oregon is their secondary is a little bit shaky. I mean, they got a great run defense. Their pass defense has given up 276 through the air per game. And Washington almost exclusively throws the football. They have no running game, Washington, but Michael Penix Jr. can throw that ball around. And Oregon's secondary is the weaker link in their defense. So that's why I look toward over here, even in the 70s here. What do you think, Connor?
I know. This still, I think, could get over the total here, 73 now at most spots. You mentioned it. Penix is just going to throw it around. Just Washington hasn't been good on the road. And Oregon, it just seems like kind of all year lately, they've been able to just win by 2 touchdowns and get the cover, win by 17 or 14. Because I think the back door could be open with a defense like that and giving up points. So I'm off this game.
Connor, not getting involved in this one. It is a high total. And again, it's 69.5 it opened. And now it's up to 73 in most spots. All right, Georgia and Mississippi State. We've got Georgia 16-point road favorites here. 53 the total in this game. I have a hard time believing Mississippi State's offense is going to function here against Kirby Smart and this Georgia defense, because it seems like teams are starting to figure out, the air raid and the Mike Leach style and shutting it down. But at the same time, we've seen enough visual evidence in games this year where when Georgia is not playing an Oregon or an Alabama or a Tennessee or a marquee game, a big-time game, a big opponent, a big game atmosphere, we've seen them not play for 60 minutes. We've seen them go through the motions. We've seen them kind of slough off. Even the Florida game, they let them back in it a little bit. The Kent State game, the Missouri game, they were asleep most of that game. Do we get that here from Georgia in this game? Matchup-wise, X's and O's, Georgia can roll if they bring their best. But situationally, off the huge win against Tennessee, and all they need to do is win. They don't need style points. They don't need margin. They just need to win the game straight up. That's it. And we've seen enough evidence from Georgia that they've had moments of being flat in games against certain opponents. Will that be the case here? It is a concern for me. So tough game. Situational bettors galore will flock to Mississippi State. It's the same like with the LSU game. If you're a situational handicapper, you're going to love Arkansas and you're going to love Mississippi State today because you're worried about the spot for LSU and Georgia. But at the same time, I think LSU and Georgia are a lot better than their opponents today. So that's the big conundrum here. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah. What do we get? Georgia, the couple road games this year have not been very good. So you got to think those cowbells will be banging there. I mean, number one.
I am hearing the atmosphere is supposed to be pretty crazy there. Like they're fired up in Starkville.
I don't know how. Yeah, it should be wild. Vegas of the South, Starkville. Take the points, Mississippi State. They're in this game. I lean under as well.
They have been terrific as an ATS team at home. I will say that. Mississippi State's actually been a pretty good home team, ATS, under Mike Leach.
More cowbell.
More cowbell. And it's ESPN coming to town, too. Big ESPN. They don't get the ESPN treatment very often, Mississippi State, but they will get it tonight with Georgia and Mississippi State. Sean McDonough and Todd Blackledge are doing that game tonight, Georgia and Mississippi State. All right, next up, we've got Wyoming, Colorado State. Wyoming, 9-point road favorites, 42.5 the total in this game. Wyoming's off a bye. Wyoming's a lot better than Colorado State. I got to give Craig Bull credit. This guy had a real rough team coming into the season, and he's gotten the most of it. They're already at 6 wins. They're already bowl eligible, and they're a lot better than Colorado State. Colorado State's a mess right now. But do I want to lay 8.5, 9? I'll tell you what, I would lay the points with Wyoming before I ever take Colorado State. That much I know. And they are off a bye, so extra time to prepare. And Wyoming's defense is all right, and I can't imagine Colorado State's offense doing a whole lot. So I'd lean Wyoming. I'd lean to the under in this game. What do you think, Con?
Yeah, that's where I'd be. This total's just a little bit too low, though. I just don't know if I can, bet this one when it's this low. And still, I think Wyoming, which I don't love taking outside of Laramie, I'd still lean their way, -9 here.
All right, we've got the Shula Bowl here. Florida Atlantic and Florida International. Next up, FAU 15.5-point road favorites, 54.5 the total in this one. Don't look now, but our nice little under the radar moneymaker all of a sudden has been this Florida International team. They've come back from until last week. They ran into North Texas and they got drilled 52-14. But prior to that, they had covered 3 in a row. This is a rivalry game. I would think FIU's fired up for it. And I know FAU has had their way, obviously, with Florida International because they've won and covered 5 straight Florida Atlantic over FIU. But Florida Atlantic is not a let's lay big points with them. When is their last game that they've won by a convincing margin? Charlotte way back early in the season, who are terrible, and Southeast Louisiana, who are an FCS team. Other than that, against an FBS opponent outside of Charlotte, they have not won by more than this point spread, 15.5. They won by 7 against UAB a couple weeks ago, and they beat Rice by 3. They are off a bye. So they do have that in their favor, but there's a lot of points. I think FIU shows up for this game. I like the home dog here. Golden Panthers lean to the over slightly as well, because one thing we've seen with these two teams is a lot of points the last 2 years when they've played. So over, and I lean to FIU, home dog. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I mean, FAU, I think is a better football team. But these are 2 4-5 teams. Are you kidding me? 15 points?
Yeah.
Give me FIU here. They cover at home.
Yeah, in a rivalry game too. I mean, this is, they call this the Shula Bowl with these two teams when they play each other every year. All right, next up here as we continue along on this college football Pub Hub show, 7:30 games now. Next up, we will start with Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina. Coastal 4.5-point home favorites, 48.5 the total. I like Southern Miss a little bit, but you're not getting as good of a number now. It's down to 4.5, 5. Obviously, Grayson McCall is not going to play. He's out. That's the big news for Coastal. That's why this line has been adjusted quite a bit. So you're going to end up seeing Bryce Carpenter at quarterback for them. Southern Miss has kind of been a disappointment the last few weeks. They've not played great, but they're still sitting on 5 wins and still an opportunity to gain bowl eligibility here with one more win down the stretch. And certainly their chances of maybe getting it here tonight against Coastal Carolina just went up significantly with Grayson McCall out for them. They're off an ugly loss to Georgia State, 42-14. But before that, they had won 3 in a row, against Arkansas State, Texas State, and the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns. Very vulnerable, I think, Coastal Carolina is here without Grayson McCall. There is a drop-off. I still, not as good of a number as it was, but I still like the Golden Eagles here getting 4.5, 5. What do you think?
Yeah, I still kind of like it. Even with McCall in, I liked it, like 10 or so. I didn't trust Coastal at all. Seems like if they were going to win, it would be by a touchdown or less. Ian, so now with him out, I think it's a tight one. And lean under. This totals took a huge hit, though, too.
Yeah.
It's down to 48. So, yeah, points in the under.
And rightfully so. Southern Miss is more of a defensive team than an offensive team. No question about that. All right, next up here, we've got, obviously, this is a game that is the ABC Spotlight game tonight. TCU, Texas. Texas 7-point home favorites, 65.5 the total in this game. I've got a real sinking feeling this is Tennessee, Georgia all over again as the week's gone on, that Texas might be the side here laying the 7, but there are some injury concerns for TCU with one of their receivers, but at the same time, an undefeated team getting points. I mean, it's a TCU team that has been finding ways to hang around and win games. And Texas, in this kind of price range, is not always a team I fully trust. I mean, look at their track record: 7-point favorites. Texas Tech, they lost outright. Iowa State, 16-point favorites. They barely win. 6.5-point favorites against Oklahoma State. They lose outright. Only games they covered in this price range were Oklahoma, who are dreadful defensively, and West Virginia, who are also dreadful defensively. That's about it. So I don't know. But again, it also feels like, why is Texas laying this much? Same with Georgia last week against undefeated Tennessee. Why are they laying this much? So I'm going to have a small bet on TCU, but the where this number is off-putting to me. What do you think, Connor?
It is, but I've not been impressed with Texas on the road. All year long. What have they done on the road? So maybe they're a little bit better. Not a
Texas,
touchdown.
This game. Austin. It's in Austin, this game.
Oh, sorry. I thought they were on the road.
Yeah.
My bad. I was
Yeah.
giving the wrong there.
Yeah.
Still,
if they're on the
TCU,
road and they're laying 7, I'm unloading on TCU.
No, that's the first. That's what I thought. My bad. I was looking at this all week. I don't know. I think I might have a small bet on TCU. This was one I wanted to wait on. I think Texas is a little bit better. TCU, though, has just kept finding ways to win.
Yeah.
Not only win, but cover in
Yeah.
some of the games they were favorite. Now, all of a sudden, they're this touchdown dog. When I start thinking about this crazy too long, usually I just need to stay off these games and get on the side. But I'd like to be on TCU.
Yeah, I definitely would lean. I still lean TCU. I'll have a bet on it, smaller one, and I like the over as well. I think we'll see points. All right, next up we've got A&M and Auburn. Auburn 1.5-point home favorites, 47.5 the total. I like Auburn here, and I don't think I've bet Auburn all year. Maybe once, probably not. But look, in the loss against Mississippi State last week, they showed me a little life since Brian Harsin got fired as the coach. And you look at it, Cadillac Williams, of course, had a great college career at Auburn as a running back many years ago. And remember, he was with the Bucs for a bit in the NFL. Cadillac Williams, he's the interim coach here, and I saw a great effort from Auburn last week. And A&M's a shit show, right? They had the flu last week. They're having a miserable, underachieving, disappointing season. Now you're going to trust them. You know, this disappointing 3-6 season. They may not even make a bowl game at this point. They probably won't. You're going to trust them going on the road for this game against Auburn late in the season. Very disappointing season. I'm not. I think Auburn wins. I really do. I'll look at Auburn. And look, Ashford, the quarterback for Auburn, is getting better each week. And A&M's defense has certainly gotten worse each week as well. What do you think here, Connor?
A little bit tricky, but you're right. I think he has got better as the quarterback. They're at home. This just seems perfect. This year for A&M is a bad wash. I don't know what to call it. You know, Jimbo
Nightmare.
With all these recruits. Yeah, nightmare. I think the nightmare continues. I think, if I were on here, I'd be on Auburn.
Nightmare at College Station. That's what you got to call it with Texas A&M this year. Florida State, Syracuse. Florida State 7-point road favorites, 51.5 the total. Now, we don't know if Garrett Schrader's playing, and that makes a world of difference because Del Rio Wilson has not been good for Syracuse. So we'll have to see if he plays. He's questionable. He's going to be a game-time decision. I don't think he's going to play. I think it's going to be Del Rio Wilson because the money's come in on Florida State. I could only look at Florida State here. They're rolling. Maybe there are some people that have said to me this week, maybe a letdown after beating Miami. I don't think so. I think Florida State's playing well, and I think Syracuse's offense is not going to work against Florida State without Schrader because it looked awful without him, the Notre Dame and the Pitt game. I like Florida State here, laying the points. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, this is one I wasn't going to get involved with at all. I have to, have Schrader in there. And real quick, can the Syracuse defense that's so good early on be a little bit better, at home here? If I get word that he's in and I can still get the 7 in the hook before it drops, I'll look to Syracuse. But other than that, I want off.
All right, next up here, we've got a couple games in the Pac-12, Cal, Oregon State, Stanford, Utah. Cal, Oregon State 12.5-point home favorites, 47.5 the total. I don't have a strong take on that game. I like Oregon State at home. They're 4-0 ATS at home. I don't bet against Oregon State at home. But Cal in the underdog role sometimes can get you, especially in the – so it's two situations where I don't want to bet against Oregon State at home. I don't want to bet against Cal as double-digit dogs. So it's an easy pass there. Stanford, Utah. I'm on Utah first half full game split. I really think they destroy Stanford, honestly. In this game, I really think they put the boots to this Stanford Cardinal team in this game. I think they get up big early. They cruise home late. I think this team still is showing that good fight down the stretch, even after the losses to Florida and UCLA. I still think this is a Utah team that has got still a lot to play for. Outside chance still to sneak into the Pac-12 title game if things break right. And I like the over a little bit too because I think Utah will hang a big number on Stanford, and Stanford might punch in a garbage score too. What do you think of those two games, Connor, in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I don't know if I get involved in these two. I like Oregon State. Just this might be a little bit too many. I lean them. And I like Utah as well, but man, that's a lot. But I don't know what to make of Stanford. You know me, it's Salt Lake. It's them or nothing. It's Utah or pass.
Pass. All right, next up, we've got Arizona and UCLA in the Pac-12. UCLA 19.5-point home favorites. Now, usually when I look at these totals in the 70s, a lot of times they're still not high enough for me to say, you know what, pump the brakes. This one I might. I mean, we're talking 77.5 with this total here, Arizona and UCLA. And yet, can you bet it under with what we've seen from Arizona's defense and how UCLA is so potent, yet UCLA can still give up some on defense as well? Tough to bet, almost impossible to bet under. I won't be betting under, but can you still bet it over at 77.5? That's the question. Still would lean that way. What do you think, Connor?
I still lean over as well. I think it might be able to get there, but I won't be betting it. KJ Jefferson, I see here, is out.
Is that so? There you go. Is that true?
Line's moving. Yeah.
There you go. That would explain it. Well, welcome to starting quarterback against LSU, Cade Fortin. Here we go. Cade Fortin. Actually, there it is. Malik Hornsby, sorry, is not Cade Fortin. Malik Hornsby is going to start. So there we go. Malik Hornsby at quarterback for Arkansas. No KJ Jefferson for Arkansas. So that's why the money's coming in on LSU here in this game. Wow. I guess you can say they've caught a break here, LSU, but we'll see. Maybe Hornsby can surprise, but that remains to be seen. All right, we've got just a couple. You know what? Let's do the last three right now. We'll do them all together. They're all big Mountain West games too. San Jose State, San Diego State, Boise State, Nevada, Utah State, Hawaii. San Jose State, San Diego State. I like San Jose State here. I think they're better than San Diego State. I know it's in San Diego, but laying less than a field goal, better. I like Chevin Cordero enough. The defense for San Jose State's good. And San Diego State offensively struggles against any good defense they play. I like San Jose State. I would lean under as well. Boise State, Nevada. I'm laying the 20.5 with Boise. I think after that upset loss against BYU last week, Boise just puts the fucking boot to Nevada here in this game. Bounce back spot. A lot of points to be laying on the road, but I think Boise's capable of winning by 3 touchdowns there. And Utah State, Hawaii, especially again, since the quarterback change, they've had a better offense the last several weeks. And then Utah State, Hawaii. Hawaii finally came back down to earth. They got smashed by Fresno last week in Fresno. But I think I'm going to come back to Hawaii here. As double-digit home dogs, Timmy Chang's team is 4-0 ATS their last 4 home games. So Hawaii is actually covering numbers at home. They've been competitive. I don't trust Utah State's defense necessarily laying double figures here on the island. I think I'm going to come back to the well with Hawaii. Even though I finally lost with them last week, I think I'm going to bet them again here. Hawaii plus 10.5, plus 11. What do you think of those 3 late-night Mountain West matchups, C-Mac?
I'm with you. I think San Jose State, it's not going to be easy, but I think they can get out of there with a field goal win. I'm going to stay off Boise, Nevada, and Hawaii, Utah State. One thing, Utah State, not a different team now. I like the under. I think the game could stay under.
All right, liking the under here with Utah State and Hawaii. Looks like Cooper Legas, who's been taking over the quarterback spot with Logan Bonner injured, is going to play for Utah State. There was some question about his status for this game, but yeah, Cooper Legas looks like will be available for them. Great stuff. What a show. Thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. 267 live viewers. Run it up that like button. Make sure you hit that like button. We appreciate it very much. Nobody gives you every game on the board, college football analysis on a Saturday morning, but us here at the Pub Sports Radio College Football Pub Hub Show. Smash that like button. We appreciate it very much. Dabby Cab has got the live bet stream for LSU Arkansas coming up. We got a great UFC card at Madison Square Garden tonight. What a triple main event. The UFC live stream will be later today as well. It's a great Saturday of sports, so make sure you check that out as well. A great triple main event for the UFC card tonight. Looking forward to that as well. All right, we got best bets to wrap up the show in just a second, right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101, when you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, and manscaped.com. Make sure you check out that website. Get 20% off your purchase using promo code PubSports. All right, it is time for best bets to wrap up another edition of the College Football Pub Hub. Big Ragoo already sent us his best bet in the DM, UCF Tulane over 54.5. That is Big Ragoo's best bet for this Saturday card. Conor Mac, best bet. What do you got?
Yeah, see if Tulane can get it done there. I'm going to stick to this one. I think both these defenses are good. This total's too high. So Missouri, Tennessee, under 57.5.
There you go. Missouri, Tennessee, under the total for Conor Mac with his best bet for this college football slate. My best bet for this card, man, it is a tough. I actually think this is one of the better cards in a little while. So we will see if like I said, tough to really come down with a selection here for best bet. There's a lot I like. I'm looking it over right now, and I think when it's all said and done, I'm going to go with Temple and Houston over the total. I think that's ridiculously low, that total, with what we're seeing from really the defenses of both of those teams right now. 56.5 the total. I think it goes up and over. Temple, Houston over the total. That's going to be my best bet for this Saturday card. And that'll wrap up this edition of the College Football Pub Hub. We thank everybody in the chat for joining us. Hit the like button. On the way out. We appreciate it very much. Dabby Cal has the live bet stream going right now for LSU Arkansas. And if you're just joining us now, KJ Jefferson out, a late injury absence. He's been battling that injury for weeks. He's a no-go. Malik Hornsby in at quarterback for Arkansas this afternoon. That game kicking off in 10 minutes. Great stuff for Conor Mac. I'm Ian Cameron. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the games and good luck. Have a great Saturday, and we'll see you again Monday, the two of us, Connor and I, 1 p.m. Eastern for Hitting the Books. And we'll also be together for College Basketball Net Profit Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific as well. So double dose of C-Mac and I on Monday. Make sure you join us for that right here on Pub Sports Radio.
Welcome to another edition of The Walking Dead.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of ECL on Pub.
Class is in session, hitting the books on Pub Sports.
This is another exciting edition of the main event on Talking Ant.